What's up, guys? Ben here, Tactical Nutrition, where we are breaking through the matrix, cutting through the propaganda and the lies that have been fed to us and led to this insanely out of shape and sick society. And in this video, I really actually want to focus in on just what I just said there, which is breaking through the matrix of health. And I don't want to sound woo-woo or anything like that, but you know, I went to school for health, exercise science, sports nutrition, and so I was well versed in navigating all of the government health agencies and using them to quote unquote help clients, which couldn't be further from the truth at this point. But so, for instance, we'd use PubMed a lot. If you don't know what PubMed is, it's a online database where you can find pretty much every single peer-reviewed study that's ever been, released. Tens of thousands. You can find things on certain drugs. You can find things on obesity, diabetes, things like that. Sorry, I got a hair. It's always something with these videos, but and then I'd use the CDC guidelines or website to find out health statistics. So, when I was in school, it was about 20%, this was 20 years ago, about 20% of people were obese, right? At that point, it was about 50% were overweight. But if you don't know the difference between those two, it's just basically scales going through body fat percentage. You don't need to know the numbers, but let's just say overweight obviously just means you're a little overweight, and maybe your body fat percentage is 6, 8, 10% higher than the health guidelines. Obese is where it's getting to the point where it's extremely unhealthy. Being obese shortens your lifespan, and that's when I've taken women's body fat where it was at 45-50%, double, and then if you get high enough, it's called morbidly obese. Now you get to the point where you're approaching potentially deadly levels of obesity, which is one reason why you don't see very obese 60-year-olds, things like that generally. But so now the number, now the number is close to 50% are obese and about 70 to 80% are overweight. And I would say it's closer to 90%, just off of what I've seen. And so those numbers have been going up drastically, over the years, pretty much year to year in a nice, tight little linear fashion. These overweight and type 2 diabetes, chronic diseases, autoimmune conditions individually have gone up tremendously. This is like the whole new scourge of issues, from fibromyalgia to multiple sclerosis, things like that. And so we know that so obviously this system that we have in place, this public health system, is not working. It's an abject failure, if you ask me. I stopped listening to it a long time ago. And they make little updates, and sometimes people try and throw these jabs at me. Like, I'll talk about the food pyramid, and they're like, ha, Ben, they don't even use the food pyramid anymore. Well, they still do in a way. They have the recommendations that you're supposed to eat, and it's still pretty much the same garbage. Like when I was in school, I don't know if you guys remember this, the old school food pyramid. And all this stuff that I'm talking about, it seemed like random, but I'll get to the real heart of the matter here in a little bit. But you remember the food pyramid where the bottom was basically like whole grains, and you'd see like breakfast cereals and all types of junk. Oatmeal, whole grains were like supposed to be like a big part of your diet. And then there was like another section that was fruits and vegetables, another section which was dairy. At the very top, you had oils and fats and sweets. which I always thought was interesting how they put sugary candies and things like that up there with very healthy things like olive oil. So basically, if you really want to be healthy, for the most part, just take that whole pyramid, flip it upside down, and you can remove dairy altogether. But so a large part of your diet should actually be healthy fats, and then proteins in the middle, and then carbohydrates would be on the top, the little, like the smaller slice. But so they've changed the guidelines. I check them out here and there. I spent so much time on those websites in school that I really don't go back to them that much. I mean, I'll read the news on them, but I keep up with the statistics here and there. But so we've got this abject failure, and this is why more and more people are getting sick. It's very simple. Like, they listen to these guidelines. These are the kind of guidelines that are taught in school, even when you're a kid. I mean, most kids, you don't learn anything about nutrition anyway. Like, if you remember, your school lunches in America are about as bad as you can get. Like, mine was, growing up, it was like that crappy square pizza, and then they'd have like a little carton of like that, like basically like skim milk that's nothing but sugar and just garbage. And then there'd be like some peas or something. I mean, some other countries actually have really good school lunches, but so our school lunches are based off of these government guidelines, and they are trash. And so that's why the kids are getting sick, more and more as well. Like, people need to realize how important food is. It's the fuel for your body. It cannot be denied. When you change your diet, when you start to eat things that you should, and add in special nutrients on the side, like, start to use spices, and you can eat like things like hot peppers. Those all have a place. They all help your immune system and the health of your body. But what I wanted to get into is like the actual corruption here. So if you notice, 5 years ago, we had a pretty tumultuous time. Do you guys remember who they had in as the HHS, the Health and Human Services? I mean, they couldn't handpick a fatter, more unhealthy, mentally unhinged person. Like, you would think you would have like a super fit person that was like really, really smart with nutrition, maybe knew about fitness, was coming out and telling the public like, hey, this is the kind of food you should be eating, and this is like, you should work out, and, give guidelines, like actual guidelines. But I haven't heard a single thing like that ever from a government agency. It's always been, take your shots, take your meds. It's like drugs, shots, not a word on how much water you should drink, how to breathe properly, nothing. It's like as far from health as you can possibly imagine. And still a lot of people like fight me on this. They're like, well, you're not a doctor. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, that's why you should listen to me more. But there's a revolving door. You can just Google this stuff too. Like, this is widely known. So like, what'll happen is you'll get like the head of the FDA. So there's essentially two arms here. The FDA is the USDA, the FDA, and then you get the CDC. Three arms, I guess. The FDA is the Drug Enforcement Agency, Food and Drug Association. They will come after health foods. You can't make any. That's why you can't make any health claims, even ones that are like very common. Like, for instance, there was a story I read about where there was a company that made almonds, and they were saying that almonds can be good for your heart, and it's like the FDA, no, you can't say that. Only drugs can prevent or cure disease, right? Right on their website it says that. Unconstitutional FDA. It is. But so the FDA also like they don't regulate supplements. And a lot of people, like, I used to wonder why, because like I know that these the drug companies are behind it all. The pharmaceutical companies and medical companies are just so inhumanly rich and getting richer by the trillion-dollar industry yearly. And, you know, they hate healthy supplements. Obviously, they do not want people to be healthy. I'm not saying every single person involved. There's good doctors, there's good nurses and things like that. But the companies themselves are running a business. Once you understand that it is a business, hospitals are a business, right? Like, if they have empty beds, then they don't have any customers. Like, they keep track of this stuff. That we need to fill these beds. Come on, where are all the sick people? Come on, guys, get out there and eat Cheetos and drink skim milk, would you? And stop drinking water and working on it. We need to fill these beds. We need to fill you with meds and slowly kill you. But so it's the revolving door, is that basically like the head of the FDA will always be like a former CEO of a pharmaceutical company or the head of the CDC, something like that. And then after they leave the FDA or the CDC, they will go back and either work for a pharmaceutical company or they will be like a top advisor in some way, shape, or form. So they go from, it's a racket, it's just a racket. And if you're someone that is into natural health, like that's what I use, the term natural health, which is like, I haven't been to the doctor in literally like 20 years. And of course you can go in there and get tests and stuff, but like, I don't really get sick. And if I do get sick, I know exactly what happened, because I've been doing this for a long time. And so like, that's what I call natural health. Like you can like, like, we're not really meant to, this is not normal to like constantly sick, taking medications every day, psychiatric meds. That's a whole nother one, right? Every single day. Like, oh, you just have ADD. So here, just take this Ritalin or meth or whatever you want to call it. Methamphetamine, says right on the bottle, you know, every single day. And then down the line, when you have been taking speed every day and it screws with your sleep and eventually get sick because you've been taking speed every day, then you can come in and they call it the vicious cycle, the death spiral, where you end up, you become unhealthy, something happens, you go in, you end up on a medication. Down the line, and eventually the side effects start to show. Then they pile on another drug, and then eventually you become deathly ill. And I don't want to scare people, but I've seen it and heard it happen all the time. Before you know it, you're on 5 or 6 medications, and but they're still not doing the things that they need to do in order to do the things to lower the blood pressure or to help with their circulation or their heart health, right? I'm not giving medical advice here. I'm just calling out the industry for what it is. So this is why I call it, like, at the beginning of my videos, this is why I say breaking through the propaganda and the matrix, is because, I'll end the video here pretty quick, is because the propaganda is massive. It's everywhere. Yeah, obviously, if you watch cable TV, which I don't, at least I don't at home. I don't know why anyone would these days, right? Most people really don't, unless you're like really old, I guess. But we all know about the commercials. Every other thing is a drug commercial. And they show the people frolicking through the field. They're listing off all the side effects about how you're going to die. It's really bizarre, but that's one form of the propaganda. And then the schools propaganda. Actually, pharmaceutical companies have a huge interest in schools, elementary schools, high schools, because then that's where they can start to get people on the ADD meds and the psychiatric meds and all the stuff you see. I mean, it's all one big, consistently, always has to grow industry. They can't just like stagnate and be like, all right, we're done. They have to come up with a new disease. So they just like switch a symptom a little bit. Now they have a new disease. It was ADD, now it's ADHD. And I've even said AAADHD with like some kind of autistic component to it, or I can't even remember. It gets to a point where you can't remember this stuff anymore. But anyway, guys, I want you to be healthy. That's why I make these videos. We talk about nutrition, tactical nutrition, where you use timing and you use all these resources, because we have massive resources all around you. Obviously, at the supermarket, at the basically the supermarket, the gym, the health food store, the supplement store, and but you got to navigate it too, because again, there is a lot of bad supplements, and there's a lot of health foods that aren't really healthy. That's why, like I always say, it's important that you educate yourself, find mentors, stay diligent, and but you can turn this ship around, because as someone, like, I used to have really bad eczema and like exercise-induced asthma. That's what they called it when I was a kid. I got rid of all that. Turned myself really healthy, even though I had bad habits for a long time, but I always maintained the nutrition and health. But other bad habits, just like most humans are fond of falling into. But anyway, guys, I hope that kind of helps. Just give you an overview of why I have such disdain for these companies in this industry that claims to be our, health, health, I guess, administrators in the government. You should never look to the government for health at all, in my opinion. But there's plenty of people out there that know how to do these things. There's coaches, nutritionists, trainers, obviously, of all sorts, holistic health people. So anyway, guys, that's all I got. Went a little longer than usual today, but it's important people to understand this racket, because I don't want you to fall into it. So that's all I got for you guys. Check me out, tacticalnutrition.net. Follow me on Instagram, all that stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Leave a comment if you agree or disagree or have anything to add about this, because this interactive community I'm trying to create while I grow the channel. All right, guys, that's it for me. Peace out.